Thank you so much for tuning in and welcome back to your very own Try Before You Buy channel with your host Karamullah Kadwani. Today, as you can see, is all about the Desert Gems collection from the house of FREDRICK MALLE, the Echelon line, and the most expensive fragrances as well in my collection. I'm talking about the high-end perfumery, the niche Echelon, very pricey range of perfumes. Anyways, folks, if this is the first time you're tuning into my channel and you love watching fragrance reviews from recent times and old, and you still haven't subscribed, as I've noticed more than 80% of my viewers have still not subscribed, please do subscribe to my channel, hit the notifications bell, and do press the thumbs up if you like the video. Without wasting any more time, let's get into this, as we have a lot of ground to cover. So these are the Middle Eastern Oriental fragrances that feature the Arabic writing and come at a rather hefty price tag. There are a total of 4 fragrances, actually 5, as they've just launched and it's available exclusively at Harrods. The name for the perfume is MALLE, meaning hope. As I was mentioning, so I have a total of 4 fragrances, excluding the one that's exclusive to Harrods right now. 2 of which are composed by my favorite nose, Dominic Ropion, who is also the nose behind the much infamous Portrait of a Lady. One from Carlos Ben Naim and one from Julian Rascone. So the 4 fragrances that we're going to be talking about today is Al-Wa'ad, the Promise, Al-Qamar, the Moon, Al-Fajr, the Dawn, and Al-Layl, the Night. I did not, I was pumped on getting the fragrance MALLE, Hope, that is exclusive to Harrods, but what put me off is somebody's nose that I trust tried it out at Harrods, and the feedback that I got is it's a hybrid between the Promise and I think the Moon or the Dawn, Al-Fajr, and I wasn't convinced. I mean, if that's a money grabber, and I'd rather wait for it. They're going to launch here. It's going to launch here in September. I suppose it will be available in the UAE market, and I'll make a decision. I'll make a conscious decision once I try it, because these are rather pricey. Including shipping, it will cost about 4,000 dirhams for 100 ml. And if I'm not sold on the idea of, I'm sorry for the noise, but there's some kind of work going on in one of the neighbors, which is completely out of my control. So let's start with the best, my most favorite from the Middle Eastern collection, the Desert Gems, is the Night, Al-Layl in Arabic, and has been around since 2014. For me, this one got some getting around to, though. I had already started experimenting with real oud attars back in 2004. Just got to Oud Ziyufi Kadim and Oud Kambodi Kadim. Kadim means old, aged, from my travel to Saudi when we went for Umrah in 2014, I suppose it was. But this one seemed to be so raunchy, animalic-like, but refined and luxurious at the same time. Barnyard, fecal-like qualities. It was rather pricey and still remains rather pricey. It retails for exactly 5,695 for 100 ml. Completely relevant, as people in the United Arab Emirates prefer going out in the nights rather than the day, as it can get rather hot and humid during the summers especially. Nights are cooler and much tolerable, not to mention the city comes to life post 11 p.m. There was something addictive about it. Spraying it just once every time I visited the Bloomingdale's showroom or went to the boutique, the FREDRICK MALLE boutique. I just couldn't fathom the magnitude of this one initially. I mean, the way it opened, kind of, I didn't want to kind of, I usually wash my hands off But having said that, the perfume would still remain well until the dry down. Even washing the hand multiple times, the perfume wouldn't just go. The first time it came off repulsive and offending due to the animalic-like qualities coming from just the real oud used in this composition. Its barnyard animalic-like characteristics, as it uses 100% real oud at a 10% whopping concentration. Never heard of in perfumery before this one. This one has been created by the master perfumer Dominique Ropillon, and you may consider this one as a more intense and robust oud experience of Portrait of a Lady, done by the same perfumer, considered as one of the present day woody shapers. This one particularly reminds you of Portrait of a Lady, as it uses the same rose in the night, but here it's more about the oud than the rose. Saffron, frankincense and sandalwood make an appearance as well. So that is what this fragrance is all about, but it is ultra pricey. A little goes a long way for most users, though I love overspraying this one too. And maybe for the fragrance connoisseur or someone with a more seasoned nose might get away with 8 to 12, maybe even 16 sprays, which I do. And that's just something that I do, but even for the hardcore enthusiast, maybe just 6 to 8 sprays. For beginners, however, even 2 sprays of this might come off too much due to its animalic-like nuances. Already discussed the pricing. It retails for $5,695 for 100 ml. And though I'd wear it anywhere, I've now restricted myself to the more dressed up evening occasions scent only due to the rather hefty price tag. The one thing I love about Frederick Malle that I may have forgotten to mention is that they name the perfume on their bottles, and that's just such a praiseworthy thing to do, as you connect with the perfumers and makes you more aware of the artist, just like names of artists in a rock band or perhaps a painting, and would encourage you to experience more from not just the brand but the perfumer themselves as a brand, if that makes sense. That's what perfumers should be in their own rights. Rock stars. I'm a little concerned for the future though for Frederick Malle. As Frederick Malle once said, he'll always stand by his brand. When it was earlier sold to Estee Lauder in 2016 or 18, I'm not sure of the year that it happened in, but he's stepped down with the present brand acquired by another entity. If all natural ouds is your dig, you'd seriously want to consider trying this one. But if you've only been using oud in the designer space, you may want to tread carefully around this one, as the animalic has a roar. The more I've worn it though, the less I feel the animalic-like nuances. Maybe it's just the nose getting used to it. I've noticed that the more you smell, the more your nose attenuates to the rather challenging aspects of perfumery. There are just so many to name that I couldn't stand the first time I've come across, but those just turned out to be the masterpieces I've fallen in love with and have become the top lieutenants in my collection. It's 10% real oud, as I've told you earlier, but I forgot to mention that it does have 28% rose concentrate. Please don't quote me on this, but I think it's the highest concentration I've come across. So if you're ready to splurge $5,695 for a 100 ml bottle, you're sure to stand out in the crowd. 3 years from the night, however, we were given the promise, al-wa'ad. Al stands for the, wa'ad means promise, by the brand, and it's perhaps my most favorite at the time. It's very boozy. At first I thought of it as a misfit in the Desert Gems collection, but I understand now better than ever before as I've dwelled deeper in my journey and I see the use of cypriol or nagamotha kind of accentuating oud and enhancing the oud feel, or just used in combination with other notes to trick you into thinking there's real oud whereas no real oud appears to be in the composition for some fragrances. So cypriol can bring about this woody, earthy and smoky nuances to the composition. Cypriol is also highly prized in the perfume industry. Its essential oil gives off a deep, bewitching scent, often described as woody, earthy and smoky. In perfumery, cypriol is often used as a base note in many olfactory compositions to add depth and warmth to fragrances. Also kind of brings out the finer aspects of liqueur or aged like whiskey and the oak barrels used in the aging process. 2017 launched retails for $1,545 for 100 ml, being the least priciest in the Desert Gems collection, a good place to start at to warm up to the Desert Gems collection. 50 mls of course are also available for the entire collection in case you did not want to commit to a full bottle. Sorry, just crossed my mind when the night launched they had a limited 250 ml bottle retailing for a whopping $13,445. You heard that right, ladies and gentlemen, 13,445 dirhams. Present day I'd love to get my hands on one of those, but they're out of stock for some years now. Just a fun fact. This one created as well by Dominic Roupion, and the notes are pink pepper, rosemary oil, apple accord at the top. In the heart you get the Bulgarian rose oil, Turkish rose absolute and clove oil. So it does get spicy with lots of rose. In the base you get patchouli heart is what they call it, ambroxan, labdanum, cypriol and castoreum. A few of my favorite notes in perfumery. I've learned that I do love these notes. The base is heavy and dense with a hint of animalics shining through by using castoreum, but in a rather balanced way, not overtly animalic, just right. So as mentioned earlier, it will remind you of a finely aged liqueur, moreover an apple calvados, as you have an overdose of apple, brandy or cognac. Please don't ask me where I get my boozy knowledge from. Ask me no questions and I'll tell you no lies. It's like opening the bottle and smelling it is where it will immediately transport you to the barrels in which you store the pricey liquor for maturation process, just like in perfumery, is how I'd like to put it, and even the oak. The apple here is so realistic, but more like the fermented kind, boozy. Needless to say, all fragrances in the collection are very long lasting. I still wouldn't rank them in order of preference, so stick till the end to find out my most favorite to the least. A thing to keep in mind is my preferences have changed over the years of having these in my possession. We will discuss pricing, maybe as the best value proposition and ranking it if money was no object. As we always say, price is rather subjective, and to some it may be very hefty and to others it may be like buying a cheeseburger from McDonald's. At this point though, I'd like to emphasize that you're going to get what you paid for, getting your money's worth. So let's move on to the Dawn Al-Fajr. Yes, all the names have in the front of them translated from the Arabic word Al, meaning the, as mentioned before. This one came out in 2018 and retails for a whopping 5,695 for 100 ml, same as the night. These are the two most priciest gems in the collection, if you will. The Dawn was created by Carlos Ben Naim, a perfumer I've recently fallen in love with, and for me this is the fragrance that prompted me to look into his other creations. This one is oud as well, but at the same time you get more of the frankincense that they mentioned, olibanum, which is another word for frankincense or incense. This may remind you of church, as I frequent the St. Mary's Church, as mentioned in my previous video in Dubai. And another church I used to often go to is the St. Michael's Church in the Al Qasimiya area in Sharjah. So another fun fact, UAE, the United Arab Emirates, comprises of the 7 Emirates, Dubai, Sharjah and the Northern Emirates, Abu Dhabi, IDS Alain falls under Abu Dhabi. There's also Ras Al Khaimah, Al Quwain, Ajman, Khurfaqan, Dibba, Kalba, that fall under the Northern Belt. Let's further deviate, as I'd like to give credit where credit's due, and I'd like to tell you quickly how I got this far in my fragrance journey. My grandfather would travel to UK often, and his signature scent back in the day was Aramis Classic. I hold 2 bottles close to my heart and have always been a part of my collection, as my father wore it too. Not to mention, I started buying fragrances in 1993 for my deceased father, Allah yarham. That means Allah bless his soul. And for the first time, I was introduced to Gaiac from the house of M. McAuliffe around 2003. I couldn't spool the cash, as it was close to 650 or even more. I don't remember the exact pricing, but I think it was 650 back in the day. That's when my elder brother Rahindat Kadwani stepped in ever so selfishly and bought me the fragrance. He always did this. He stepped in many a times those days and bailed me out, as I used to get into trouble often. He bought me my very first expensive mobile back in the day, and it costed him more than his salary, and I never wondered how he managed his funds. I couldn't imagine how he'd manage his funds. He never really bought anything expensive for himself. His love for me remains such a phenomenon till present day. Well, let's get back. So for top notes, you have rose and pink pepper. I'm sorry, my voice keeps in the heart, olibanum, and in the base, labdanum, vetiver, oak moss, and oud. Again, a heavy base. Also, just to let you know, to my nose, frankincense can remind you of pepper, and pepper can trick your nose into thinking you have frankincense in the composition. They accentuate one another here in this composition. Also, this one reminds me of one of the Sheikh's offices my father would frequent, as he had a friend who shall remain unnamed, Allah yarham, as my father passed away. I've earlier mentioned in 1999 he was battling cancer. Fragrances are teleportive, as they can take you back in time to places you'd forgotten as years went by. It's just such a beautiful thing. In the end, for me, incense has a colder experience, whereas the night has a warmer experience. And so the names make perfect sense, that you'd like to wear Al-Fajr, the dawn, as your daytime signature scent, and the night during the cooler evenings. The executions also seem to be different, one by Dominic Ropion and the other by Carlos Ben Naim. So although it starts colder, it does settle into a warmer experience where it gets a little ambery in the base, balancing it off. Balance is rather important, as I've always emphasized in my reviews. Finally, let's talk about the Moon, Al-Qamar, that kept selling out when it was released. Ever heard of saying, save the best for the last? Well, spoiler alert on my ranking. The Moon, one can argue, brings the night and the promise together. Not sure why, but that's what I get. Created by Julian Brascanet, who worked with IFF at the time. I suppose FREDRICK worked with IFF perfumers for the Desert Gems collection. It's the scent of the day for my wife today, and she loves this one, unlike many others in my collection of fragrances. So we have top notes of raspberry, lychee or lychee, and saffron. And we have the fruity nuances from the get-go, which might remind you of the promise and oriental touches coming from the saffron. Heart notes of olibanum and Turkish rose. Base notes of oud, leather, Saffron accentuates the leather note I've always mentioned. It does wear cumin-like with sparkles and pops of cumin, that sexy muskiness coming in time to time. So people may refer to it as a body odor, but what a beautiful wearing experience. And it does not come off as body odor, rather, as I mentioned, a very sexy muskiness. Fruity, leathery, smoky incense. If you thought the night was animalic, you got to try this one. Sexy as faluda, an Asian dessert. Also something to do with kulfi, a note used in Tom Ford Noir and Tom Ford Noir Extreme, the kulfi note. Kulfi is also another delicacy, and Asians with Indians and Pakistanis, often associated with Indians and Pakistanis. For me, dawn kind of lurks in the shadows of the night, if that makes sense. It's just such a big fragrance. For sure, the dawn, daytime signature scent, and night totally dressed up evening signature scent worthy. All four are very relevant. Must have all four in your collection, as they all bring different nuances and they're all different experiences altogether. So you may want to start with the Promise being the least priciest one. Retails for 1,545 for 100 ml, leveling up to the Moon, which retails for 3,220. Followed by the Dawn, which is 5,695, and the Night priced the same. We'll do more on this house, where I'll give you my 2 cents, pun intended, on Synthetic Jungle, Monsieur, Portrait of a Lady, Must Ravageur, Rose and Cure. Once again, these are not your typical Western oud fragrances where you have very little or no concentrations of real 100% authentic oud. The downside is that once you try these, you may never want to go back to the Western interpretations, not naming names. My 2 favorite Western oud perfumes that may or may not contain any real oud are Royal Oud by the House of Creed and Tobacco Oud by Tom Ford. Also Spice and Wood by Creed, less exclusives, though not sure if it mentions oud as note. So we usually talk about presentations, and we shall talk about presentations for this one. I'll try to show you what the packaging looks like. So the Desert Gems collection comes in these gold-like with the Arabic writing here up front. You have a photograph of the perfumer that's responsible for creating the fragrance. A very praiseworthy thing for FREDRICK MALLE to do. So it's in a sleeve. The sleeve is all gold, and the packaging, the rest of the packaging is rather standard for all FREDRICK MALLE fragrances, where you have this beautiful coffret, if I don't know if I can call it that, but the perfume is snugly fit into these coffrets and does not fall off at any point. As you can see, this it goes in and then it slips into the sleeve, and I do keep my fragrances stored in a cool, dry place, not to mention the packaging for the regular perfumes within the House of FREDRICK MALLE usually come in a red sleeve. You can see Portrait of a Lady here. You see the photograph and the name, a little credit to the perfumer, right? And then you have Dominic Ropion, the name mentioned up front with the name of the perfume. Rather same packaging, standard for all perfumes, and I love the packaging. The packaging is immaculate. I love the packaging. It's like a very soft, foamy kind of an insert in which the bottles are placed. I just would like to, as an additional note, tell you that I've fallen in love with this fragrance. It's I didn't give it a try for the longest time ever, but once I tried the fragrance, this is exactly how much remaining. You can see how much of it is used, and with a rather I'd like to call it a humble collection, but I do have a lot of fragrances, and for me, wearing one of these fragrances to that extent, it actually became a hot favorite for my wife. My wife doesn't usually like my choices in perfumery or the MALLE especially, the more challenging fragrances, as she's more into Chanel, YSL, say designer space, but then the exclusive like La Vestiaire collection from YSL she loves. The perfumes that she loves from there are Baby Cat. You have Jumpsuit. You have La Valliere from the La Vestiaire collection. You have another 2 fragrances that she does. Rouge Velours. It's a Chypre rose kind of a construction. These are beautiful fragrances, not taking anything away from them, but she doesn't usually like my preferences when it comes to animalics and the more intense oudi compositions. Portrait of a Lady, she so loves, and I don't need to kind of tell you the amount of love this one gets. It's a backup bottle worthy fragrance, and I do have a backup bottle thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm very grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for bestowing me with life after life, chance after chance, and where I am today. Alhamdulillah, I cannot thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enough for all the blessings that He has bestowed upon me. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Please do like, share and subscribe, and leave in your comments letting us know what you think about the review, or if it helps you in any ways in your fragrance journey or adds value to your experience becoming, inshallah, one day a fragrance connoisseur. Ask me any questions and I'll try to answer them to the best of my capability. Until the next time, your host Karamullah Kadwani signing out.